Good morning, sixth graders. Today we're going to talk about Brazil in the Amazon rainforest and think about how important is it really. Hopefully you've had a chance to read text pages 341 to 355 before watching this video. One of our warm-up activities, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and think about some brainstorming, just a couple sentences. You should have a white paper in front of you. What would a day in the rainforest be like? So just write a few sentences about that just pause it for a minute or two. Hopefully you had some time to share your brainstorm with a few neighbors close to you. This is a good diagram of the different layers: the forest floor, the understory, the canopy, and the emergent layer at the top where the trees capture and the plants capture all of the sunlight and many of the bird species live. So just get to know those different layers of the rainforest. They each have value and are really important as we think about why we need to conserve and why we need to stop deforestation in the rainforest. All kinds of different species. There are more plants and animal species in the Amazon rainforest than anywhere else in the world. The Amazon rainforest trees are a huge part of helping to take carbon dioxide out of the air. And if we don't have those trees, we get an increase of that carbon dioxide trapping the heat, and that's the global warming, the temperatures that are already happening. They've been measuring glaciers melting, sea level rising because of those gases. And so the more trees we have, the less greenhouse effect that we would have on our planet. So the rainforest is really important for removing that carbon dioxide. The trees take in the carbon dioxide and let out oxygen, which is the clean air that we can breathe. So we're going to watch a couple video clips that help us to understand why the rainforest is so important and why deforestation, one of the most important environmental issues they talked about in South America in the section that you read on culture in South America. And then we're also going to look at life on the Amazon River. Another important part besides just the rainforest is the river, and they're all connected and work together in that ecosystem.
The Amazon is the world's largest tropical forest, harboring millions of species. Deforestation there has dropped significantly over the last 5 years. More law enforcement alongside the global recession has probably been the cause. But forest loss in the Amazon is still a problem. Researchers keep tabs on deforestation by satellite, but to know the reality of what's causing it, you have to be there in person. That was the motivation behind researcher Robert Walker's recent Amazon adventure.
Our objective was to interview loggers and people knowledgeable about the logging sector in order to understand how it is that they actually open the rainforest through their road building activities.
So Walker, along with colleagues Eugenio Arima and Rita Maria Pereira, set out on a road trip. They started at São Felix do Xingu, then flew to Santarém, and drove west along the Trans-Amazon Highway, which isn't like any highway most of us would picture.
The road itself was absolutely wild. We were lucky. We brought sleeping bags. We really didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what the road would be like, whether it would be passable. And in fact, the last leg was nearly impassable from Humaitá to Labria. It was so wet. It was 200 kilometers. We didn't see a single vehicle on the road except the road maintenance crews. And that no one's on the road. It's empty, and there are a lot of jaguars there. So if you get stuck in the road, you have to sleep with all your windows up, or a cat is going to cause you problems.
They drove 900 miles west in a rented Jeep from Santarém to Labria, a trip which took them 9 days.
The whole trip along the side of the road, it was just forest after mile upon mile upon mile of forest. On the Western Trans-Amazon, it is literally a quarter of green forest the entire road.
Though they didn't get to interview any loggers, they talked with people all along the way. They came upon an active gold mine and were allowed access, something very rarely given to outsiders.
And quite frankly, they're not pleasant places, nor are they very safe.
They spoke with a group of Kayapo Indians, learning firsthand about the deals they'd made with loggers in the past.
A lot of the logging that had occurred in the region had occurred on their historic territories.
And in a close-up wildlife encounter, they stumbled upon what Walker calls a macaw city.
It was just one of those magical nature moments that I hadn't had since I was maybe 10 years old.
In the end, they found what is probably the logging frontier in Brazil, where logging, both legal and illegal, is now concentrated.
On the way to the villa, you have to cross a river. It's the Aripuanã. We observe logging trucks coming from Vila Santo Antonio do Mantupi, which is just to the west. And they were big trucks, Mercedes-Benz trucks. They call them Romeo and Juliet trucks. They have two cabins, or two beds, I should say, and they were stacked with sawn wood, and they were coming one after the other.
With this knowledge, on their next trip, the team hopes to focus their investigation on logging in the villa, if possible. But Walker and company also learned that it's not just logging that threatens these ecosystems. The pattern of roads they'd seen from satellite imagery had led them to believe it was logging that was fragmenting the forest and sprawling into virgin land.
You get these very disorganized, we call it dendritic fragmentation. They're basically spidery networks of lines on the satellite images.
It turns out this kind of development was also being produced by settlers, ranchers, even local governments. These groups haven't gotten much attention in past conservation efforts, but they could better protect the forest if they built roads and farms in a more orderly pattern.
And so one of the keys to sustainable development is to finding the pattern that minimizes these impacts, the pattern of opening the native forest in such a way that you have minimal impact on the plants and animals that reside there. One of the patterns we believe is potentially sustainable in this regard is fishbone. They call it fishbone fragmentation, and that's, I don't know if there's another term for it. You'll see it on satellite images, and it looks like a fishbone. It looks like a comb.
Development can coexist with conservation. The moral of the story is, it just needs to be done thoughtfully. For the National Science Foundation, I'm Lisa Raffensperger.
The rise of the Andes created whole new environments within the mountains, but it also had more far-reaching effects. This Great Barrier changed the climate of South America. It also redrew the map of the entire continent, radically altering the course of its major rivers. The Iguazu Falls are one of the wonders of the world. 4 times as wide as Niagara, they carry 60,000 tons of water a second. Part of Amazonia was once a huge swamp, connected to the Pacific and the Caribbean. The rise of the Andes broke those links, forcing the major rivers to flow east. One massive river now drains 40% of South America, the Amazon. This is the mightiest river on Earth. Running over 4,000 miles from the Andes to the ocean, it carries 1/5 of all the river water on the planet. A 1,000 miles before it reaches the sea, its main channel is already 10 miles wide. Every year, the mighty Amazon bursts its banks, flooding an area of forest the size of England. height of the flood, the trees can stand in water 10 meters deep. The floodwaters bring with them the animals of the river, like Boto dolphins. Their origins are a mystery. Could they be a relic of Amazonia's ancient links with the oceans? These river dolphins are almost blind, no handicap in water that's often very muddy, because they navigate by echolocation. Unlike marine dolphins, they have a flexible neck, so by sweeping their head from side to side, they can scan their path ahead. Their sonar is so precise that they can weave their way through a maze of submerged branches in search of fish. Whisker-like bristles on their lips help them zero in on their target.